so much so with endurance sport, whether it's, running or triathlon or speed skating, whatever it is, it's the consistency factor, right? So I would rather someone just do B pluses, but have B plus after B plus after B plus for that whole block than, an A plus and an F, A plus and an F. Like, your average is going to be much better. You're going to be healthier, and you're going to be like mentally not fried. You're going to be ready to go come race day.
Are you running a marathon? Oh my God, I could never run a marathon. You sure about that? My God, a marathon, that's like 42 kilometers, 26 miles. I don't understand those people.
That used to be me, but not anymore. Welcome to the Marathon Podcast. My name is Christian Warwick, aka Warwick Runs on different platforms. Thank you so much for being here. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. Today I have some big news. On Friday, I woke up to a Reddit thread where it said that now you were able to see if you actually got into the Tokyo Marathon or not. And a few months back or weeks back, I threw my name in there. Didn't really think that I had a big chance of getting in, because obviously those chances are not very big. And to my surprise, it said selected, which means that in March, I'm going to Tokyo for the Tokyo Marathon, and I'm stoked about that. It does mean that I'm going to have a lot of marathons in the upcoming year, and I'm sure a lot of people will criticize that. First, I'm doing Valencia in December, then Tokyo in March, Boston in April, and then Sydney in December, if I'm lucky enough to get in there. So, really excited about that. A big surprise, and it's just one of those things that you can't really say no to when you get in. So we are going to Tokyo, and I'm really excited about that. Today, when recording this, the Berlin Marathon just finished, and it was a hot day. I think a lot of people struggled, but there were some fast times too. At some point there, it looked like we're going to get a world record. The level of marathoning these days, it's just insane. I'm loving this sport. I love to see how a lot of people are fast. A lot of runners are really pushing the limits on the distance. So that's a lot of fun, and I'm super excited to be a part of this, and super excited to have this podcast where, again, I want to thank all of you for listening, but also for just all the feedback, all the messages that I'm getting these days. I've never experienced this kind of response to anything that I've done. So really, really appreciate that. And I also am sure that Jeff Cunningham, he wants me to tell you guys thanks too, because he told me that he's never had that kind of feedback on any podcasts before. So that's cool. Make sure to check out his podcast. It's coming out soon. And today we are actually having another podcast host on, kind of. He is new to podcast. He's gonna make a podcast together with a previous guest, Rory Linkletter. I'm obviously talking about Jacob Thomson, a super, super fast marathoner, one of the fastest in the US at this point. And we had such a good chat. I reached out to him, and it didn't take more than a day or two from us starting to chat until we had a conversation going, and really, really appreciated this chat. And also a little bit of a shout out to Chris Striegel, a Life in Stride host, who now just went full-time. Check out Life in Stride if you haven't already. But he gave me a lot of information about Jacob because they know each other well. And I think that Jacob should kind of present himself in the episode. But he is a 2023 half marathon US champion. He has a 2:11 PR in the marathon distance. And I know that he's aiming at something special at CIM this winter in December in the US Championships. So I just want to say enjoy this episode. As you can tell, I'm starting to get a little bit sick, so I'm not going to talk too much here. Enjoy the episode, and thanks for being here. Welcome to the Marathon Podcast, Jacob. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you here. You have a pretty good setup there. It looks like you are a podcaster already.
Oh yeah, we were just talking about this off air. Yeah, myself and Rory Linkletter, another marathoner, are kind of launching a marathon road running centric podcast. It's going to be called Out and Back, and so hopefully check it out. I think next week. I think on September 24th, I think, is when we're gonna kind of launch the first couple episodes. So yeah, you had to teach me how to get my mic and headphones and things set up here because we're very new to the game. But yeah, catching on quickly, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that podcast. This episode will probably be out maybe 2 days before, so that's hopefully a perfect promotion for
Nice.
for your podcast. Really excited about that. What will so obviously that's a running podcast, a marathon podcast. What are your plans for that?
Yeah, so I think Rory and I both, we were both run professionally. He's a Canadian Olympian at the marathon. He's ran 2:07, top 10 at Boston. We competed at the same time in college and raced each other a lot. I run professionally for Under Armour. I've run 2:11 and 62 and the half. So we trained together quite a bit, and we're just kind of taking the banter from our runs and into a podcast format. And we were like, we should just do this. So like basically every other episode we'll bring on a guest, and probably similar to this interview style, with a guest and ask them questions, and then between episodes will kind of just be like us talking about our training, our race goals. We're both in the middle of marathon buildups right now, and yeah, we'll just kind of see where it takes us. We don't really have anything big we're trying to accomplish with it, other than we run together. We run hundreds of miles together and chat the whole time. So we figure we might as well take our banter to the masses and see if anyone else is interested in listening.
I think that's great. I think you're very, very welcome in the podcast world in terms of for running, and I feel like you will probably also stand out as very professional runners having a podcast. That's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm excited about it.
I think it'll be good.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I've been following you for a long time on Instagram, and I didn't realize until today that you are the Jacob that Chris Striegel has been talking about a lot on the podcast. Before we start the podcast and talk a lot about running, why don't you present yourself?
Yeah, so I'm 30. I just got married. I live in Flagstaff.
Congrats.
Yeah, I've had a big last like 18 months outside of running. Bought a house here in Flagstaff. My fiance at the time moved out here a little over a year ago. We got married in July, almost exactly. It'll be 2 months by the time this episode comes out, I guess. So yeah, that's all very new. But yeah, I grew up in Kentucky, kind of in like the southeast region. Went to the University of Kentucky. Was an All-American and SEC champion at 5K and 10K there. After that, I graduated college in 2018. So I feel like I still feel pretty young, but I'm starting to look at start lists and I'm like, oh man, I'm like the old guy on the start list now. But yeah, after that, I spent 3 years in Boston. I ran for the Boston Athletic Association, which puts on the Boston Marathon. It's Adidas sponsored group. And then during COVID, I was really not enjoying much, in life and running and anything. So I was like, I need to change something up. This isn't working for me. So beginning of 2021, I just packed up my car and drove to Flagstaff. And yeah, I've been here ever since. And I've kind of moved from 5K, 10K focus to the marathon. And I've won a US title at the half marathon in 2023. And just looking to continue to build on that, and I have aspirations to be one of America's top marathoners, and that's my cliff notes of Jacob Thomson, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was talking to Chris just before our call here, and obviously I did feel like I knew some things about you, but when he kind of just listed all the things that you've done, some of the things that you mentioned here, and it made me think that, or it really sounded like you were very good from a very young age, and that running has been a big part of your life for a very long time. You're not just one of those who just recently started, I'm gonna go all in, but it's been a lifelong journey, it seems like. What made you start running in the first place?
So growing up, I really wanted to play football, American football, and my mother would not allow me to do that. And my uncles and some of my cousins, my grandfather had like a little bit of running backgrounds. So I started running when I was in fourth grade, which is about age 11. And then I was honestly not very good, but I was not dedicated to it at all. I played baseball, played basketball, played about any sport besides football, I guess, that you could do. So I was one of those kids that, I'd show up to practice once or twice a week and didn't really like it that much. And I'd show up to the race on the weekends and I'd go all out. But I was kind of always like a middle of the pack guy until I got to high school. And in high school, I really took off. I won a state title as a freshman. I ran 420 in the mile as a freshman. And I did that while I was playing on like the JV baseball team, like the second string baseball team. And I had a really good high school track coach. And after my freshman year, when I won a state title and ran 420, he was like, maybe it's time to, quit playing baseball and focus on running, And ever since then, I've been all in, and that's been 16 years, I guess. That would have been like 2008-ish. And I've kind of been all in since then. I ended up winning 12 state titles in high school and setting some state records, and actually started out my collegiate career at NC State, North Carolina, and I was there for 2 years, and I was making progress, but I didn't think it was like a great fit, so I transferred to the University of Kentucky, closer to home. And once I made that transfer in college, I kind of really took off on the NCAA level as well. So it's been a long journey, but I've enjoyed it, and I still feel like I'm, hopefully trending upwards. I feel like that's one of the good things about our sport, is that you can get better for a long time, even if you already are good.
Yeah, I think that's also, like, especially about the marathon distance, you see people who are, Kipchoge now is 40 years old and is still up there running fast times. It's really inspiring to see. And I think that's also not just for you guys as pros, but also for the rest of us who, like, I found running 2 years ago. I used to be a speed skater, and now looking back, I'm like, oh, I wish I found running earlier, because I feel like maybe that I had more talent there, but I still know that, okay, I'm 32. I can have a lot of years of having a lot of fun with the marathon distance. And I appreciate that about the sport.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I do a lot of coaching as well, and I coach a lot of really talented high school runners, but I also coach a lot of adults who are maybe trying to hit a Boston Marathon qualifier, or go to Berlin, or whatever their marathon goal is. And I think it's great because it's something that you can chase for so long. And we were talking about this a little bit before we hit record too. Like, I feel like the marathon and road running is just so much more accessible and like relatable than maybe some of the high end track stuff. So like, I was very much in that like high end track world, and a lot of my teammates, I run for Dark Sky. Like, we have, I think, 8 athletes at the World Championships right now on the track. So like, from all the way from 1500 to 10K, and I think it's really cool because, like, you can look at the 1500 and the 800 and like those events, but to like someone like yourself, or like so many of the masses, like the half marathon and the marathon are just so relatable because it's something that they feel like they're like companions with you in it almost, and I really enjoy that part of it.
And there's also something, and I was talking to someone yesterday about this, that there's something very narcissistic about it, but it also feels good with the marathon because everyone runs. So everyone knows, the paces you need to do a sub-3 marathon, whatever. So whenever you tell people that you did that, regardless of, like, obviously compared to your 211 marathon, it's my 247 marathon is nothing, but to your average Joe, that is still really impressive, right? So then you're able to like, when you're having a discussion over dinner, you're like, oh yeah, I did a 247 marathon. And they're like, what? And I appreciate that, because back when I was a speed skater, if I told you that I did the 3K in 4 minutes and 3 seconds, that probably sounds fast compared to running, but you have no idea if it's a fast 3K for a speed skater or not, right? So people couldn't really relate to it, and that's also something I appreciate about running, that people can actually relate to it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think like my favorite like adult group to coach is like kind of that 3 hours to 240 range, because like you can like people, they're so bought into it, and like you can see such big like improvements. Like when you get to be like a 211, like we're fighting tooth and nail for seconds, but to go from like a 247 to 242 is like, oh man, it's like such a cool jump. And I feel like everybody, like the running community, like just like really supports that, and I think that's a pretty cool thing about marathoning, especially.
Yeah, I agree. I want to hear more about your coaching later in the episode or our conversation. But before we head into that, I'm curious about when you kind of realized. You said you did a 420 mile in like when you were a freshman, and your coach told you that maybe you should now channel all your energy on the running. When did you realize that you were competitive? Because obviously, having done this for 16 years, being dedicated for that long, you need to be pretty competitive and dedicated. So when did you realize that?
I was always competitive in anything that I did growing up. Even before it was focused on running, I was definitely just grew up a very competitive kid. Whatever I was doing, I wanted to win and have that that kind of mindset. And I took that into school. I took it into I always like worked. Did like landscaping, cut grass and stuff like that growing up. So like in the summers, I was like, how many yards can I cut? Like anything I did was like very, very competitive. And then, once I started to get a little bit of success in the running and committed myself full time to it, like, I think that was like probably when I really took off. I do remember like that same year, my first year of high school, I went to one like fairly like nationally competitive race. Like, I don't know if you're familiar, there's a big race in the US called the Foot Locker Nationals.
The one they just
they just canceled
down,
it
right?
actually. But to qualify for the Nationals, you go to a regional meet, and the country is divided into 4 regions. And as a freshman, I wasn't going to qualify for Nationals, but they have like a freshman only race. And this is the first time I'd been like out of the state to, just kind of like race kids in my city basically until then. And then I convinced my mom to let me go to this race. So we drove like 8 hours to North Carolina to do this freshman race. And she's like, all right, well, like, what's your goal? And I was like, well, I guess like I'm just going to try and win this race, right? And
Awesome.
She was like, maybe we should be like a little bit more realistic. There's going to be like kids from Florida and Texas and like all over the place. Like at this race is a big race. And I was like, Mom, if we're driving 8 hours to get there, like I got to at least try and win. And then I won the race with a big kick. And that was probably the first time that I was like, oh, like I'm not just like the fastest kid on my street. Like I can be like competitive. And it just gave me that like confidence. And I think I took that all the way through high school. But that was like the first time I guess my eyes were really open to like, oh, like, you're not just like the fastest kid on your street or in your city or at your school. Like you're actually like, you can be competitive for this. And then as far as like, when did I think I could, make a profession or career out of it? That probably wasn't until very much later in college. And kind of the same thing. I was a finance and accounting major in college. And even going into my last year of college, I was like kind of right on the border. I'd been an All-American, but like, kind of didn't know if I was going to be like good enough to compete at the professional level, or if if I'd be better off just like trying to go into business. And actually had a really bad race and to end my senior like cross country season. And I just remember my coach pulled me aside and he's like, hey, like if you want to pursue the business thing, like, because I was lining up job interviews and stuff like that with banks and everything. And he's like, that's cool. Like, but if you like want a shot at this, like you only get one shot, like you need to like really like commit to it mentally. And that was like kind of it for me. Like I flipped a switch. I canceled all the interviews. And after I did that, I had a great track season and everything kind of worked out. But that was another one of those moments that was kind of like, you kind of have to, shit or get off the pot. Like you gotta make a decision. Like you're going, which way you're going to go. And so I would say like those are like 2 big like defining moments that kind of made me realize like I could be, good at this.
Yeah, because that was what I wanted to ask you just before you mentioned this last big moment. Because I feel like most athletes will have maybe this one thing is realizing that you're good, right? But then you might have a talent, but then you get to a point where it's not about the talent anymore. It's about how you use that talent. And I guess like that when you made that decision to cancel those job interviews and stuff, do you feel like that is when you just decided, now I'm gonna go all in? This is like, I'm gonna be super dedicated for this?
Yeah, 100%. Like I was dedicated before, but I feel like mentally, like I was kind of pulled in different directions. Because like I always just kind of assumed I'd go into business, and that's what I was studying. And I feel like a lot of people have a breakout race and they have like this great big performance, and that's when they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go like run pro. Like for me, it was actually like a horrible race, and I was like, oh wait, going back to the competitive thing, I was like, this isn't how I'm like going out. Like this isn't it. So like that was kind of like the defining moment for me. Yeah.
I feel like, and I don't know if you agree, but I feel like there's a difference between dedicated and dedicated. Because when I look back at my training from, say, when I was 15 years old, and I could tell people like, oh yeah, I'm going all in for like with speed skating right now. But then there was still this moment when I was maybe 16, 17, when I told my dad that I don't care how much training I need to do, like just give me a training plan and I'll do anything. I just want to be the best skater in the world. And that year I was really dedicated, and then I had a few years between there where I thought I was super dedicated, but I like, and then I'm talking about those small things, the big things I was doing. I was putting in the hours, but that little extra, those small little details, the marginal gains that are necessary, I can still look back at like, okay, that season I was really good at that, and that season I could have been better. Do you feel like that was the change that you made? Like you said, you were dedicated before, but then something changed there?
Yeah, definitely. I kind of look at it as like you have physical resources and mental resources, and like your physical you can use 100% of your physical resources for training, and but still be kind of going through the motions. You can still train X hours a week and run X amount of miles and hit your workout splits. But I think the part that really like flips the switch for a lot of people is like, let's just say you only have 100 units of like brain power, and it's like, if you have 30 of those on school and 15 of those on your girlfriend, and it comes down and you're like, okay, I'm doing 100% of the work, but I only have 25% of my like mental units like locked into my running. I think that was like I flipped the switch and I was like, all right, like all that other stuff is gone. Like I'm staying. It was right around Christmas break because cross country season ends in late November, and I stayed on campus for Christmas break so I could like go to the weight room and use our indoor track because it was like super cold and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna like I don't need to go home. I went home for Christmas for like 2 days, but like everyone else went home for 2 or 3 weeks. I was like, I lived like 90 minutes away, so I was like, yeah, I'll go home, see my family, and I'm coming right back here and like keeping my head down, staying to work. And honestly, I feel like well, I guess we'll find out soon, but I feel like I've made that switch again here recently because like 2022, 2023, I had really good years professionally, but for probably about the last year and a half, I feel like I've really struggled on the professional scene. And now I look back at it and I'm like, well, I bought a house, I moved my fiance across she lived in North Carolina, so moved her like 30 hours out here. I got married, like went on a honeymoon, like I was doing all these other like life things. And by the end of our honeymoon, like I very much enjoyed our honeymoon. It was awesome. We actually were over in Europe. But
nice.
But on the way home, I was like, all right, when we get back to Flagstaff, like I'm not going anywhere until after like my marathon that isn't like for a race. Like, no weekend trips, no like, if someone wants to see us, they can come visit us. But like I need to like really dial in because like I feel like I was spending those like mental units everywhere else, even though I was putting in the training. So I feel almost like rejuvenated, like I've kind of made that commitment again to high level running, and I'm excited to see how this fall shakes out.
That's really cool. I think that sometimes we need to do that, like just reset. But when you stayed there for a Christmas break, and when you really, I don't know, when you made that decision and you were putting more work in, how quickly did you get results from that?
I feel like very quickly, because I feel like the physical stuff was already there, but it was like you're almost like just missing a little piece when you show up on the start line. And that indoor season I had a great, like I was at the University of Kentucky, but I broke like the 3K school record. I ran a 4:01 mile totally solo.
Oh.
Solo at our home meet. Broke our 3K record, broke the 5K record, was 7th in the NCAA at the 5K that indoor season, and then just kind of rolled that on. And I was 6th in the NCAA at the 10K in that outdoor season, and won an SEC title indoors against we have SEC has like really good distance runners, like a lot of like African guys from Alabama were that year. They had like 3 really good guys. So it was kind of like me, there's one guy from Tennessee, and then three of these guys from Alabama that would like duke it out at all the big conference championship meets. And I feel like as soon as I flipped that switch, I was able to compete again.
Yeah, that's something that I've been thinking about with running, and I don't know if you agree, and maybe because you are able to probably run much more than most of us. Like for me, for instance, the mechanical load is so high, and so it's harder to get enough hours and to feel like I'm as dedicated. Because if I look at a week and say I have 10 hours a week, obviously that is, a lot of people would say that's a lot of running, but for me, coming from a sport where I had up to 35 hours a week at the most, then it still feels like nothing, and I feel like my life is not all around running, which is obviously healthy in a lot of ways. But do you have an advice for the people who want to kind of lock in, like you're saying, mentally, right? Because I feel like that is maybe something that happens when you're putting more work in, then you feel like you're more locked in, you are more dedicated, and everything kind of just ends up being really good, and that's when the results will come. But if you feel like, oh, I'm just waiting for the next day to come so I can go out for another run, but I wish I could go out for a run tonight too, because then I could run more, but then I would get injured. Do you have an advice for people who are in that situation?
Yeah, so that's kind of the crazy thing, right? Because you hear like like Kobe Bryant, like basketball stories of he was just in the gym for 12 hours a day, and like obviously we can't go run for 12 hours a day. Or actually just finished reading the Norwegian method about Kristen and Gustav. And even like I have some triathlete friends here in Flagstaff, and training 30 hours a week for them is nothing. Like that's what they do week in and week out. That'd be like me running a 70 or 80 mile a week. It's like not the level we're training at doesn't even seem like it's that much training to them. But I couldn't imagine running for 30 hours a week. So I think like a lot of it is just like having a plan and then like executing your plan. And so like for me, if like I have a plan that I believe in and I'm following my plan and then I execute it, well then like I should, I know all the inputs, I know what the output should be on come race day, right? And I think a lot of times if you're second guessing what you're doing, or you're like, maybe I should do more, maybe I should do less, like you're always like kind of questioning it. Like maybe you don't like believe in yourself enough. And I think that's a big distinction. Personally, like it's easy to get caught up in like more is better, work is work. And I think to a certain point, like that is 100% true. But then, you put on all the other like factors of life, especially for an amateur runner or someone trying to, run 240 or whatever it is. Like if you have a plan that you totally believe in and you check all the boxes and your coach like tells you that you're ready to go, like you shouldn't doubt that or question that. Like you should look at the race and be like, okay, what do I need to execute now on race day to meet my goal? And I think that's a big thing, is like just having confidence in yourself as an athlete to know, excuse me, to know that you don't need to do more all the time.
I love that you're saying that, because I think that is something that is kind of underrated, I guess, like just being proud of executing. Because if you have a plan, and especially if it's a marathon block, you have 12, 16 weeks, depending on what your marathon block looks like. But you have so many weeks of training, and you have a plan in front of you, and you have no idea if you'll get through that injury free, or if you're going to have the progress that you want. But just being proud of actually executing that, regardless of the results, really, it's a big deal. And like you're saying, I think that a lot of people can relate to the fact that they can look back at the week and be like, this week I was able to execute all the hard workouts or all the easy runs exactly the way I planned or my coach planned for it to be. And that is almost an achievement in itself. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I think a lot of people think they need to have, when I'm talking to an athlete, like think they need to have like home run, like A+ workouts. And so much so with endurance sport, whether it's, running or triathlon or speed skating, whatever it is, it's the consistency factor, right? So I would rather someone just do B pluses, but have B plus after B plus after B plus for that whole block than, an A plus and an F, A plus and an F. Like your average is going to be much better. You're going to be healthier, and you're going to be like mentally not fried. You're going to be ready to go come race day. If you just show up every day, and every day doesn't need to be fancy or flashy. You just need to do your plan and get it in.
Yeah, that is great. I'm gonna use that. B plus is better than A.
Yeah, no, it is. Your average will be better because a lot of times people, it's almost like they need to prove it to themselves because they don't. Again, it goes back to like the self-belief thing. It's like, oh, I need to smash this big long run faster than my coach said because like I need to prove to myself that I can. Exactly. When really it's like, well, if you just did the goal, then your coach is setting you up to smash it on race day, right? Like let's save it for that, and then people go out and they hit that big one, and then they get sick or their Achilles it gets messed up and they miss a whole week of training, and it's like, all right, well, would you rather have 7 or 8 days of solid B plus training or that one A plus and then like out for a week, So it's always just like risk reward, ratios really.
Yeah, I love that. I want to go back to your career earlier on, because after college, is that when you went to Boston and BAA?
Yes, yeah, that would have been about September of 2018. I moved there. Mm-hmm. And I was still focused on the track at that point, kind of like 5K, 10K mainly.
Yeah. And back then, was that your first? Because that was a contract, right?
Yeah. It was an Adidas-based group, and that was my first contract, and that took me through the end of 2020, so it was about 2.5 years. And at the end of that is when I decided that was the middle of COVID, so we hadn't really raced or done anything in almost a whole year. And so beginning of 2021, I decided to move to Flagstaff just because all my best races when I was in Boston came off of either altitude camps or sleeping in an altitude chamber. So like I knew altitude was good for me. And I was like, well, I've trained well in Flagstaff before for these training camps. Like, why not just go live there full time? And then, I think it's been allowed me to like really level up my training.
Yeah. And obviously me having the insider and Chris, he did tell me that you kind of, when you left BAA, that, because that is obviously you could call it a safe place in terms of a sponsor, a team, all of that. And then when you packed up and left, you kind of said bye to that, call it safety net that contract has. How was that? Obviously, you did mention that it was COVID and all of that, but still, what was that scary?
Definitely a little bit. So I had started coaching, actually online coaching at the beginning of COVID. So at this point, I'd only been doing it for 8 or 9 months. But I was making like basically just enough to pay my bills at the time off of the coaching. So I was like, all right, I could either stay here, have a contract, have the support system, have the team, but maybe I didn't think I was going to achieve my like athletic goals if I'd stayed there. Or do I go to Flagstaff kind of rogue by myself and figure it out? So having the income from the coaching basically allowed me to pay, rent and grocery. And then, I was here for about a year before I signed the deal with Under Armour. So that first like 9 or 10 months I was here I was kind of in limbo the whole time.
And I think a lot of athletes can relate to that, because especially until the moment that you actually sign with a team or sign with a brand, whatever, you might find yourself in a situation where the dream is much bigger than the income and the business of it. For those months that you were just, like you're saying, like without a sponsor deal or anything like that, were you stressed out, or were you able to, because of the coaching, kind of just relax and still focus on your training and not let that affect you too much?
Yeah, I think because of the coaching, it did give me a little bit of a safety net, not as big of a one as I would have had before. But then I ran great that year. I broke 28 minutes in the 10K. I made it to the Olympic trials in the 10K that summer. I got 12th at the Chicago Marathon that fall in my marathon debut. And once I basically did that in October, basically from mid-October to December, I was talking with Under Armour and then started with them in January of 22. But yeah, I think it kind of just goes back to being willing to bet on yourself and take a risk. So like, yeah, I'm glad I did it and glad it worked out. But it could have gone 10 different ways. But I also think if I would have stayed in Boston, I would have been very unhappy. I don't think I would have run nearly as well as I have since then either. And honestly, I looked at it as like you have a finite window to compete at a very high level. So, I was willing to take that risk to try to get the most out of myself.
Yeah. I think it's like, at least for me, it's something that I respect a lot when you are able to make that decision based on probably your own well-being, but also, like your own results. Because I do think that a lot of athletes might be too scared to do that because they're like, oh, but I'm safe here. It's supposed to be good, and what's good for one athlete isn't necessarily the best for the other athlete, and you still have to find your way. But it's hard, especially when finances or other things play a role too. And so, yeah, good for you that you were able to do that, and especially seeing now that you're, performing well and also having that deal. I'm very curious about Under Armour and the technology of the shoes and all of that, because was it this year or was it last year that the winner was running in Under Armour shoes on the women's side in Boston?
Yeah, so Sharon Luchetti, she just ran 65 flat and a half marathon at Copenhagen this past weekend. She won New York and Boston. She's my age. She trains here with us and Flagstaff, and our group. I feel like our group kind of gets slept on a little bit. But if I had to guess, I don't know of any other group that has more athletes at the World Championships. We had 7 people in Tokyo at the Olympics last year and 8 people at the World Champs on the track this year. And I think maybe it's because we have people from so many different countries. Like we have, the U.S., Canada, Mexico, Australia, Great Britain, Kenya. So like we have some very good, runners. I mean, I think we have 6 guys on our team between 3:47 and 3:53 in the mile. We have 4 or 5 guys that have run from 12:55 to 13:05. So like it's a very competitive track-based team. Wayne Kaladi had the American record in the half marathon. She made the Tokyo team in the 10K last year. So yeah, we have a really good team here, and I think it's really blossomed over the last several years. So like right before I joined the team, like the team existed, but they didn't have as much traction. There's probably only 6 or 7 people on the team. They weren't able to sign a lot of like bigger athletes because I don't think at that point the shoes weren't, they weren't as good as the Nike or the Adidas and things. But the shoe team is great. Like they come out to Flagstaff, they work with us. We get the prototypes. We give them feedback. It's very like real time. Like 2 weeks later, you have another prototype, and like. And the shoes now are very good. The trainers are great, and the race shoes and the spikes are very good now. So Under Armour's definitely made a big commitment to distance running, and I think having Sharon kind of carry that torch, so to say, that 4th place at the Olympic marathon, Boston and New York City champ is it's pretty tough to top that, and I think she represents the brand really well, and that's enabled them to get a lot of publicity on the shoes and make them see that their investment is worth it. Because I do feel like, kind of like we said earlier, like the track, you could have a really, really good track guy, but it's not like relatable to so many people. Exactly. But you have a really good marathoner, and it's like, oh, all eyes are on them. Our like social media guys, like, anytime we post something about Sharon, it's always like the best like traction that our posts get. And I'm like, that makes total sense, because like everyone sees, Boston Marathon champ and New York City champ, they relate to that so much more than, World Championship qualifier on the track, in an event that they may not relate to or have ever run or experienced, But Under Armour's made a big commitment to distance running and to our team especially, and they've given a lot of athletes the resources needed to like flourish and thrive here.
Yeah, and like me coming from Norway, the only relationship that I've had to Under Armour is when I've seen American football in movies, because that's usually where you see them, right? And then my fiance is from the U.S., so she definitely has a relationship to it. But when she saw that she was wearing Under Armour winning Boston, she was like, "What? No, no, it can't be." And I was like, "Yeah, no, look, those are Under Armour shoes."
Yeah.
And what do you think that, or like, why do you think that they've decided to kind of like go all in, or I'm not sure if you can call it all in, but like do so much for the sport of running?
Yeah, I mean, Under Armour is definitely, so Kevin Plank, the CEO of Under Armour, played college football. So like football was definitely their starting point, and like the tight Under Armour shirt, that's like that was like the first thing Under Armour was known for. But honestly, I think they have a commitment to being good at like across all levels. Like they're very into basketball, they're very into baseball, and I think running was kind of that next thing. It's a big Olympic sport. Obviously, the marathon majors and stuff is a huge market, and they had always made running shoes and stuff, but I think they decided to really turn it up a notch the last 4 or 5 years or so to make a commitment to the pro teams to develop like top notch technology in their shoes and stuff. And yeah, I would say it's definitely paid off and working. And yeah, I hope we've done well enough that like they see like, oh, this makes sense. Like, let's keep investing and putting good R&D to continue developing these.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun, but I assume that like you did talk about the group, and it's obviously not all about the shoes. You guys must be doing something right, being as fast as you are as a group. And obviously you talked about being from different countries and stuff, but in terms of your training, do you think that there's something that you guys do that kind of like stand out from what other groups or athletes do? Or what do you think is your secret?
I don't know if there is a secret really. I mean, I think we have a really good core group of athletes, and it's easy almost to get like pulled into the success of that. So like, if like Neil Gurley, for example, has made several world finals in the 1500, and he's run 330 over and over and over, and he's run 347, and if like Neil's running really well, it's easy for him to pull Vince, who's like the US road mile champion, and now Vince has run 330. And I think we have Festus broke like the Kenyan 1500 runner in 329 earlier this year. And like all these guys train together, and if your teammates are having success, and I think it's just a really good environment. We're in the best place in the world to train in Flagstaff, I believe, and I think that has a lot to do with it as well. We have like all the gym resources and stuff like that we could need, and I think everybody's just kind of like bought into being the best that they can be, and I think that's contagious from athlete to athlete and country to country and event to event. Like our steeplechasers all work together, and but they're also working out with the 5K guys, and the 1500 guys are working out with the 5K guys. It's kind of going back to that all endurance sport is almost the same thing. Like even our 15, if you look at like our 15, 5K, 10K and steeple guys, like they're doing probably 80% of the same stuff. The fine tuning, especially as they get closer to race season and changes. But like we're almost always, even our 1500 guys, like I'm doing more, but like we're doing our threshold sessions, together. Like 80% of it is very, very similar. And yeah, I think that's something that we really kind of bought into. And obviously being a marathoner, my season is completely different than the track guys. Like I'm going to be on my own for a lot of this block. Just because, a lot of them are competing at Worlds, and then they'll take a break, and then, come November, they'll start getting in shape. And that's kind of when I'm going to be in like peak marathon go time. But yeah, I think like our group is just really fortunate that, we're all at altitude. We have great resources, and yeah, everybody's really committed to being good at a world level.
It's cool to hear. And I also think like, at least from the outside, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like within the world of professional running, you're not really afraid of also mixing in those groups a little bit. Like you said, you're running with Rory,
Yeah.
who's a Puma athlete, and for you being in Flagstaff, where there are a lot of runners, I know that there are a lot of athletes go in there for training camps and stuff. How much do you also like work out or run with other groups or other runners?
It's very, very common. And most of the groups that are based here, so, it's Mike Smith's Nike group is based here. Our group is based here. The NAZ group is based here. John Green, which is Rory's group, they don't have a brand affiliation, but they're based here. There's several, one-off athletes like a Hobbs Kessler and those kind of guys that are based here. And then another great thing about Flagstaff is that there's always somebody here for training camp, like
Yeah, exactly.
the Canadians are here, the Germans are here. Like there's always, Jake Whiteman's here, like whoever it is, like there's always Jakob Ingebrigtsen's here. And some people are definitely more like secretive and to themselves, but I would say 80% of the people, it's not uncommon to show up at a long run and in the fall and there be 40 people from 10 different teams all there, and I think that's something that makes Flagstaff like it's like a great melting pot almost of people are oh, you're doing threshold on Tuesday, I'm doing threshold on Tuesday, maybe our session, maybe you're doing 800s and I was doing Ks, but like we find some like common ground, and I think that's something that makes Flagstaff pretty special and very unique, because like I know other places groups very much tend to just stick to themselves, maybe like in a Boulder or something like that, or there just aren't as many people to link up with. But yeah, in Flagstaff, there's always somebody to train with, even if it's just, your easy runs and stuff.
And I was talking to Rory a little bit about, the different ways of marathon training, and you have Connor Manson, Clayton Young. I would maybe call it like the old school training of, it seems like they're going maybe a bit harder than a lot of people. And I know that Rory has not been afraid of kind of saying that he doesn't think that's super sustainable. I don't know if he still feels the same way, but for you, what does your training look like, or your philosophy? Is it like a lot of really hard training, a lot of low intensity? Where are you at?
I would say I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I do a lot of obviously just a lot of threshold work. And then one thing I think that separates, it's like when I'm in a marathon block, I kind of try to divide it up into different phases. And that beginning phase honestly looks a lot like, 10K training or half marathon training. It's a lot of, threshold reps. I'll do some double T stuff. We'll do some like VO2 stuff just to get to work a little bit harder. But then once I get into the last, 8 weeks or so, I think long runs are massive, and we almost always have something in our long runs, whether it's just like progressive throughout or, a pickup in the middle, or like run 90 minutes easy and then fartlek for 40 minutes or something like that. Because I do think running closer to your race pace, even if it's just, 2 minutes on, 1 minute off for the last 30 or 40 minutes of your long run, something like that is really important. Because like, on the track, it's not as important, but at the marathon specifically, like you're going to be out there for 2 hours. You kind of have to have that like callousing or that like fatigue resistance. So I think the long runs for the marathon are by far the most important thing. And then I'll say like our track guys, they almost do no like straight, what you call like just like a tempo run. Like, oh, I'm going to go do a 10-mile tempo run. Like they almost always do reps. Like, oh, we'll do mile reps or 2K reps at threshold pace on short rest, or 3,400 or 2,400s or whatever it is. Whereas I think the marathon training, I do a lot of the longer tempo stuff, kind of in that last 8 weeks as well. Whether sometimes we might mix that into a long run, or it might be a standalone thing. So yeah, I think like getting really fit, getting in like basically good like 10K half marathon shape at the beginning, and then you kind of get to, I would call it like a specific block where it's like, all right, we need to be running for our long runs, need to be long, or tempo runs, you don't get to take a break every mile in the marathon. So like we're not doing, mile reps, we're doing, tempo runs, kind of like steady state stuff. And I think that's, it obviously works well for the marathon, but I think our track guys honestly train pretty, the Norwegian method, or something that looks something more maybe like what Jakob does. I do a lot of hills, a lot of threshold reps, and I'll do that stuff at the beginning of a block, or like in a general prep type of phase, and then I think the long runs and those long tempos, though, once you get into your specific stuff, are super important.
And you did mention that you had like this example of, say, having 90 minutes of running and then doing a fartslick after. Fartlek is actually a Norwegian word. I don't know if you knew that, but it's
speed play, right?
Yeah, exactly. But so those first 90 minutes, will those 90 minutes be pretty easy then, and then you go over to more intensity work, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I guess it would fall in like the easy zone. But for me, it would probably be like 6:20 to 6 flat pace. And then I would, do like just say it would be like 10 by 2 minutes on, 1 minute off. So 30 minutes of fartlek, and the 2 minutes I'd try to run like close to marathon effort. 1 minute easy, probably back at that, 6 to 6:30 type of pace. So I'll do stuff like that, because I find like you come off of it really well. Like it is hard in the moment, but it's not something that's gonna knock me down for 3 days.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of times if we'll do these like progression long runs that it might be 35K or something like that, and every 5K gets faster, basically starting at that low 6 minute pace down to low 5 minute pace, and those are like obviously massive, like taxing efforts, and I think you need a little bit longer coming off of those. So we kind of rotate the way we do our long runs like that.
Yeah. Cool. I always like to ask about the long run, because it's very interesting to hear runners talk about it, because there are so many different ways of doing that. You hear some people who are just doing the long run easy, and they're still running very fast, and then they just have other workouts where they're not necessarily having so much hard work in there, and then you have people who are just doing them steady all the time. And so it's always interesting to hear.
I think like rotating them is important, but I think kind of having at least 3 or 4 of those big, 20. I mean, I guess depending on the level that you're at, like I wouldn't have a 4-hour marathoner go out and do 24 miles, like close to steady state or threshold effort or anything like that. But I just think those long continuous efforts, like, because like everybody can run the first 18 miles of a marathon, but it's those last 8 miles, you're gonna have to figure some stuff out and answer some questions. And I think there's no better way to prepare yourself both mentally and physically for that than doing it and practice.
But do you think, because I heard someone saying the other day that although you prepare and you train and you have workouts and stuff, you can never be well prepared for those last 6 miles of the marathon. Like, that's when you don't know how you're gonna solve it regardless, because when you get to that point, I've been there, you've been there, it's horrible, right? Do you think that you actually can be prepared for it?
I think you can be prepared for it, and I think you're seeing it more and more now that you can train for it. I mean, it doesn't mean it's going to go perfect every time. Definitely not that, but as prepared as you can be physically. And I think a big part of that gets overlooked in the marathon is the fueling and the nutrition. And if you don't fuel in the middle of the race, like, you're definitely going to pay for it in the last 10K, the last 8 miles or so. So I think that's something that's super important, is really like trying to nail your fueling, even if you have to slow down a little bit to make that happen. I'd rather sacrifice 5 seconds a mile to get down my gels and stuff, rather than blow up and run a minute per mile slower at the end of the race.
Yeah, it was cool to see the Ironman World Championships this weekend, and you saw that the Norwegian guys, they were really
1, 2, 3.
So that was amazing. But then I was just looking at the way they were fueling, and they almost stopped and walked to be sure that they got all the gel they needed or whatever they were fueling with whenever they were getting to those stations. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, because they're still running fast and competing, but they're prioritizing the fueling because they know. And obviously, when you're on hour 8 of higher, a little bit of higher intensity, you should probably prioritize that even more.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that I can't even fathom what those guys do. I can't swim, so like I'll never get into triathlon. I do like I think the bike is pretty cool. I kind of get into I like to watch the tour and stuff like that. But yeah, doing that for 8 hours is you think the marathon's hard. I can't imagine what that's like.
I know, and this time, like Casper, he did a sub 2:30 marathon at the end of that. So that's just
That's
insane.
That is insane.
But when it comes to fueling, I feel like, you know, one of the most common phrases that I hear is people saying, yeah, but I just can't, you know, like I'm not able to fuel more. Like I tried, but it doesn't work. My stomach can't handle it. And the more I talk to especially runners, obviously, then they're talking about how that is something that you need to train just as much as you train your heart, your lungs, your legs. What is your strategy in terms of being able to fuel more? And yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something you need to practice. It's something I actually really struggle with. I think it's one of the areas that I can improve the most on. So I don't know what it is about altitude, but being in Flagstaff, it's really hard for me to. I almost always throw it up. It's hard for me to digest it, and I don't know if it's just because like I'm working harder because I'm at altitude. Because I go down to sea level and I rarely have an issue with it, or if there's
Interesting.
yeah, I haven't quite nailed it, but yeah, I try almost every workout. I'll drink throughout the workout. I usually don't. If it's like a shorter, like today I was on the track and only doing 6 miles of work, so like you don't technically need to fuel during that, but I still did just for the practice of it. And then on my long runs, I definitely am trying to fuel every like 3 to 4 miles, similar to how I would in a race. And as those long runs get longer and you start putting like right now, I haven't even done like a workout long run yet. I'm getting ready for a race in December. But like I did my first 20 miler this past weekend, and that'll kind of continue to build up. And the more specific it gets to the marathon, the more I try to treat it like the marathon, as far as, you know, how am I going to feel before, how am I going to feel during, how do I come off of it. You could tell a big difference. Like, you know, you can get through a 20-mile long run without fuel, but you're going to be pretty dead for the rest of the day. It's almost crazy that sometimes, like this weekend, I finished the 20-mile long run, and I went and met my wife. She was at the farmer's market, and she had gotten me like a breakfast burrito, and I was like, I'm almost like too full because like I had so many carbs and calories and sugar during my long run to eat this breakfast burrito. So yeah, it is. But you feel 10 times better the rest of the day and the next day if you just kind of nail the fueling stuff. So yeah, it's definitely something to try and nail down, and just try to nail down the way you're going to do it in a race. You know, I've switched up what products I use like so many different times. So like, I don't even know what I'm going to use in the race. Like I used to always use Morton, and then like, I feel like it's just like too thick now. And like my body, like as soon as I pull out the Morton, my body's just like, ugh, like I'm going to, cause I think I've thrown it up so many times. So yeah, now I'm like trying all kinds of different stuff. I've switched to gels and just done like gel and water, and like that seemed to work pretty well. So yeah, I'm still trying to, it's a thing. Even the top level of professionals haven't quite nailed down.
Yeah. Oh, it's very interesting. It's interesting to hear you talk about it, because I think that it's easy for us who are like just normal runners to be like, oh yeah, but they're professionals, they know how to do it, right? But it's not always the case, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, like, you know, I look at the triathletes like Gustav and those guys, and you're like, oh yeah, like it's probably so easy for, like, they know exactly, you know, to the decimal what to do. But yeah, I think
but he also threw up. Did you see that at the end of the run when he had like 10K left or something? He threw up, so he had to just stop a little bit, throw up, and then somehow he found a third wind and just got back there and ran faster at the end. So I don't know how he did it, but
yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think everybody has those. It must be easy for them, like they have it all set up for them, but that's not always the case, unfortunately.
No. Last thing I want to ask you about in terms of the training specific things is that, so yesterday I had a VO2 max test just to, I was very curious. I did a 247 marathon a week and a half ago, and I was like, okay, I want to see what that equals to, right? Like, so because a lot of people are curious about that, like, what is the VO2 of a marathoner. Personally, I don't think that's maybe the most like important indicator for a fast marathon, but that's my question to you. Like, how important do you think that VO2 max is for a marathoner? And if it's not the most important thing, what is the most important thing for a marathoner in terms of those things?
I'm curious. What was do you have your numbers back yet?
Yeah, so mine was 66. So
Okay.
it's 4.7 liters. So I'm 72 kilos. Obviously, I don't know this in the American metric or
It's like
that system,
160
but
something pounds, maybe, or roughly.
could be,
Yeah, I would like. I've actually never done it in a lab like that. I would be curious, but it's not something that I would say like I measure
No.
too frequently. Like I know. Yeah, I guess like with training, like everything gets better. I think I do use like the lactate meters for threshold stuff, just to try to make sure I'm keeping stuff in the right like ballpark. But even that's not something that I like swear by. Like I don't know. Like this morning I got my towards the end of the workout, like I was getting up into the sixes, but I was kind of like the point. It was like I started with all this steady stuff and it kind of built and got harder. So I was like, yeah, it should be like that. That's about right. It should be like going up. So yeah, I think like having all those tools and stuff is important. But I guess if you had to pick one thing, I don't know if this even counts in your category, but I would say it's like durability for a marathoner, because like you got to be
I
able
agree.
to to run a lot. There was a study that came out actually, and I saw an article that a guy named Brady Holmer is a guy I follow here in the U.S. that posts a lot of like sports science stuff.
Yeah,
and he had posted about it, and they took just like the average finisher from the Boston Marathon and like what equated to their performance. And I forget the exact stats. I'll butcher it, but it was like almost like every mile more they ran per week of training was like equivalent to like a 4 second per mile faster on race day. So it's like, I do think that like volume, even like your low intensity volume is super important, and finding the right threshold that you can be durable and go back to the consistency and like the B+ thing. It's like, all right, how much time do you have? How much can you run in that time, and how much can you do while staying healthy? And it's like everybody's threshold, for me, that might be 120 miles a week. For, you, it might be 70 miles a week. Like, what is that? Finding your own like personal, like call it like the sweet spot. Like, where can I be consistent and like, and yeah, just train there for a long period of time, and over like ideally over time, if you have unlimited time to train, like that can go up and up and up. The more the more you build and get used to it. But yeah, I would say durability there's not really a way to quantify durability, but
no, but I agree with you, or at least I understand what you mean, and I'm curious what you think about this. But at least for me, I think that at your level, obviously, because you need to, especially now with the level that the marathon is at for you guys, you're fairly close to the 10K pace in the marathon, right? Like, and especially in the beginning, maybe when people are trying to play it out a little bit, you're going so fast, so you might need to have a higher VO2. But for a runner like me who's running a 2:47, then for almost 3 hours, I'm not able to really take advantage of a high VO2 max. So if I had a high VO2 max, that would be hard to take advantage of. But maybe more importantly, I can't prioritize those workouts because my workouts need to be at a lower intensity. And although I've seen that my VO2 max also can increase by just threshold work and, like you said, low intensity work actually, but still, if I really want to peak on the VO2 max, I feel like I would have to do harder workouts, and I'm not sure if that would benefit me in the marathon training.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I see that a lot with both the high school kids I coach and the adults I coach, is that if I give them something on the track, like K repeats or something like that, they can smash it, no problem. But then you tell them to do a 40-minute like steady state or something like that, they struggle immensely. So I think that is the difference, maybe in like, your sub-elite or amateur versus like a professional. Is like, for me, the track stuff, like the marathon has gotten so fast that like you need to be so good at the half marathon. Like, to be as good as I want to be at the marathon, I probably need to run low 61 minutes in the half. So like now we're talking, 4:30 something pace. So like the higher end stuff, yeah, it is quite quick, and you also need to be able to hold it for a long time. But I think, yeah, for your 3 hour to 2:30 marathoner, like you can really, really gain so much by just like continuing to build that like aerobic side of things, and yeah, getting better at your long runs, getting better at your your steady state or your tempo runs. And it's something I've started to do now, which I think is quite common in cycling, and actually kind of goes back to the fartlek thing. Is I've started to do like a lot of like over under stuff. So like, and I think that it's great. So like, say marathon pace for me is 5 flat pace. It's great to go do a 10-mile tempo run at 5 flat, but it's like, okay, that's not how a race is going to go. So like, can you run 440 and then like settle in at 5 flat, 505, and then hit 440 again, and then settle back in, and like today I was doing it even on a different scale. I was doing 2-mile reps on the track, but I was running 34:40, 34:40. So like, it's coming out to be right about 5-minute pace, but kind of doing that over under. And I was kind of interested, like taking lactate readings and seeing how the up and down of it was going. Yeah, just people kind of hit it, but then recover while still maintaining a pretty quick pace. Yeah, I think doing stuff like that can be beneficial, because then ideally, if I can do that and still run 5-minute pace, well, next time I go out to just do a straight tempo run, like 5-minute pace should feel quite a bit easier, because I'm used to kind of spiking and recovering, and now I can just ride a steady line. So that's something I'm kind of experimenting with in training that I think will hopefully be beneficial in the long run. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, cool. Super, super interesting. And I think this is a great transition into the last thing I want to talk about, and that is your coaching, right? Because you are, like you said, you started out as an online coach. Did you start during COVID? Was that when it all started?
It was kind of a weird start, actually. I was living in Boston. Everything was canceled. I was hanging out there was 4 of us runners that lived in an apartment together, and literally the only thing open on our store or on our street in Boston was like the liquor store. So like, we'd go run in the morning.
Where in Boston did you live?
I was in Brookline.
Yeah,
there's a big reservoir, Jamaica Pond. I was like basically right across the street from that. And yeah, we'd go train in the morning, and then 11 a.m. we were just like, all right, what are we gonna do for the rest of the day? And we would just like watch music videos and drink beers and hang out. And yeah, that's why I was like, hey, I got to get out of here. After a couple months of that, I was like, this is not ideal for high performance, is it? And yeah, it was all of us kind of scattered after that. We kind of all went our different ways. There's still like some really good buddies of mine, but it was probably not the most. I think COVID messed up a lot of people during that time, and Boston was very, very strict with like the lockdown rules, and that was a big part. I was like, all right, I'm going to the mountains where there's like dirt roads and woods, and I can do whatever I want to do. But yeah, that was kind of beside the point. But anyways, we're like sitting around one night, and a kid actually from my hometown, who was a sophomore in high school, had just sent me a DM, and he was just like, hey man, I've run X and X time. I'm a sophomore. Like, our whole season's canceled. We're not even allowed, like, they weren't even allowed to talk, like, text with their school coaches. And he was like, hey, like, what, can you give me some like workouts? Like, I want to take advantage of this time to, whenever races come back, like, I'm a better runner. And I was like, yeah, sure. And like, I sent him a workout, kind of thought that would be the end of it. I was like, here's 2 or 3 workouts to try. And then, 2 days later, he's like, here's how it went. What should I do next? And we kind of did that back and forth. And then he was like, hey, will you just like write me an actual training plan? And yeah, I started coaching him, and yeah, started from one athlete, and he's actually a junior at NC State now. Turned out to be a state champ. Really, really good kid. Talked to him still pretty frequently. But yeah, that was like the origin of it. And now it's grown. We have coach a lot of high school kids similar to him, and then coach a lot of adults now, which I really enjoy, especially like the marathon, like half marathon focused, focused group. And then, out of that, we put on a race in November. It's like a high school 2-mile on the track, kind of at the end of their cross country season, so they can go from racing, cross country, and then try to hit a big 2-mile PR. And then we also started like a summer camp And we have like 300 kids come to camp in the summer, and it's like a 5-day overnight camp. And we bring in like a bunch of college kids to be like counselors, so the high schoolers can learn from the college kids. And yeah, it's kind of like growing into like a big thing. And but it started with just me hanging out in my apartment in Boston, and some kid messaging me asking for a workout.
So he's actually a big part of the reason why you're doing it today.
Yeah, definitely. If Jimmy, if you're listening to this, Jimmy Malarkey, thanks for getting me into the coaching world, because I really enjoy it, and I think it's something that there's so many people out there, probably like yourself, that are in that range, or they're new to running and they don't know exactly how to structure their training, and just having like a good sounding board, and setting up a training plan is one thing, but like kind of having someone with that experience, especially I've kind of done it at every stage now, to talk to go through race plans, to bounce ideas off of. I think that's like to me that's like much more valuable than like the training plan itself. Like the training plan is great, and obviously I think I write good training, but just having like someone to talk to about your goals, and who can always tell the athletes, like, you tell me, like, you're the captain of the ship, like you tell me where the ship's going, and then like I'll steer, like I will kind of help you steer there, but it has to be, it has to come from you, and kind of come from within.
I love that. And you keep saying we, and my impression is also that it's grown into something that is a little bit bigger than just you texting people right now. So what, because it's called Thomson Training, is it? Or,
it's called Thomson Training, and I coach with actually another really good friend of Chris's. We all kind of grew up together. His name's Thomas Cave, and he coaches a local high school team, and they have, I think they had 16 or 10 boys go under 16 minutes for the 5K already this cross country season. So incredibly deep team. I think his top 5 average was like 15:28. And a lot of them are, kids he's been coaching for quite a while. But it's him and I do it. Thomson Training, and we enjoy it, and we're always taking on new athletes, whether it's someone getting ready for a marathon, or a high schooler looking to go run in college. We've had a lot of kids go on. I think almost 70 kids now in the last 5 years go on to run in college, and we kind of help them through like the recruiting process and stuff. But lately, I guess the last like 2 years, it's been a lot more adults. We've kind of gone a lot into the marathon world. So I'm hoping that kind of continues to grow and flourish.
Yeah, cool. I actually got a question yesterday, because I've been pretty vocal about, I have a goal of running a 2:25 marathon, and my goal is to do that self-coached, just because I like having those fairly crazy goals. And someone told me that, you should have a coach on the podcast and ask them about like the benefits or the pros and cons of being self-coached. And so I guess I'm going to throw that question to you. Like for me, who has that goal, what would you say that are, like we could go to the pros and cons of trying to being self-coached like that?
Yeah, I think being self-coached is great if you know like some physiology, and know what you're doing. I think at that point it becomes right. You can write the training plan, and like the training plan is great, but it's like the stuff outside of the training plan. I think a lot of times people who are self-coach are obviously very highly motivated people, and so like sometimes it's hard for them to like reel themselves in. I coach a guy who I think is he's gotten a lot better about it, but like he's 120 miles a week, always wanting to do more. He's really good. He's run 66 and a half and 2:21 in the marathon. And with him, like, he's a coach himself. Like he could write his own training plan. I have no doubt about that. But I think to someone like him, the benefit of having a coach is saying like, no, dude, like you're like, let's pull off a little bit. Like, that's your Achilles is bugging you a little bit. Like, let's, maybe instead of a B+ workout, let's have a C workout, or not do the workout at all. So that way we can like, keep this ball rolling. Cause like you're good. His goal is to try to hit the Olympic trial standard, which in the US just got lowered to 2:16.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's gotten really quick. It was 2:18 before that. And That was his goal, is try to hit the 218. And now he's like, oh, well, the goalpost to move. So like, let's like, screw it. Let's just go for 216, I guess. And he's going to run Chicago and then come back and run the marathon project, which is in December. So he has a good amount of time, hopefully two fast races. But yeah, I think the benefit for someone like him is, outside of just the training plan, is having like just the guidance, right? Someone tell you like, yeah, now is the time to push. Like, this is when we want to do it, or hey, we probably need to play this safe. And then on top of that, like, you know, I've kind of been in the position, like, you know, I've been to the Olympic trials. I've done the things that this guy wants to do. So just kind of like having someone that's been there, knows what it takes. So that way you're not sitting there second guessing, like, is this hard enough? Is this too hard? Like, I don't really know. I'm like, no, this is the appropriate amount. Like, this is how much we need. You know, you need to hit these paces for our threshold stuff. We need to hit this stuff for our long tempos. Like, this is the way we need to do it. But yeah, I think being self-coached can be. I know some good runners are basically self-coached, and I think that's one good thing about a lot of, like, you'd be surprised. A lot of pro coaches are not hands off. Maybe isn't the right word, but like, the athletes have a lot of say in their training. Yeah. Like, when I talk to my coach, I have a lot of say. Like, you know, obviously he has the final word in what we're gonna do, but you know, he actually listens to me, and I'm like, oh, I want to do this type of session, or, you know, I think we need to put these long runs here, and here, and the discourse is very open. Versus, I think a lot of people probably think it's like, you know, a pro coach is probably like, no, this is exactly what we're doing. Like, you're doing this every day. I've actually found at the professional level, it's much more flexible than it was at a college level or something. Because athletes at this level know, you know, we know what it takes, you know.
And I remember several coaches throughout the years telling me that if you are an independent athlete, I've done my job.
Yeah,
kind of. That's because, like, that's their job, to help you understand things yourself, and then they can be there to guide you, like you said. And I also have to say that I don't know if that's arrogant to say, but I feel like up until 225, there are a lot of people who can do a lot of weird things and still run a 225 marathon. But if I ever run a 225 marathon and I want to run faster, I'm fairly sure that I will have to have someone helping me and guiding me from there on, because then you're starting to look at other things. I feel like to 225, you can do a lot of things and still get there, maybe.
Yeah, my high school coach, I had a really good high school coach as far as like X's and O's and like physiology, maybe like the best coach I've ever had. And he always said the same thing. So I, worked with him for 4 years, and he was like, yeah, my goal is by the time you're a senior in high school, like, you don't even need me. Like, you can just write your own training, and like, you know what to do. And I think that is really what got me into coaching. 'Cause like, even in college, like, I had teammates that they didn't think about their training. They didn't want to know what was happening. Like, they wanted to show up at the track and coach had the clipboard and tell them what to do, and then they'd go do it. But I was always like the guy, I was like, well, I don't care what we're doing today. Like, what are we doing in 2 weeks from now? Like, how is this like getting us ready for the next thing? And that's just kind of like the way my brain's always been wired since then. So yeah, I think like you can definitely be really successful being self-coached. But I will say, being self-coached, it's good even if you don't have a coach, to just have like someone you talk to about training, or someone you can like ask questions to, who maybe isn't like writing your training, or isn't like but they're like, I guess mentor might be like the right word. Something like you can just like a brain trust of guys that you can bounce stuff off of. I think that's
actually what I've found with this podcast to be great. But that is also like there are pros and cons of having a podcast with guests on, because there are so many different ways of doing it. And if I'm taking things from everyone here, I'm going to be very confused. So I had a couple of weeks this summer where I was like, okay, now I need to take a step back, because now I've been listening to all of these runners and I've tried to kind of implement all of these things that they're saying, but not all of it will work for me. And I need to remember to still stay true to what I really believe in, and then maybe use some of those things as inspiration instead of taking all of it in.
Definitely. I think that is, very wise. Sounds like you've got it kind of figured out, because I feel like it can be easy to have self-doubt when you're coaching yourself, maybe should I be doing more, or should I make this and it's usually for motivated people, it's always more, right? Like, should I go faster?
Yeah,
Should I do
yeah,
more?
yeah.
Where sometimes having that sounding board is the most useful thing to have. Say, no, this is like, you're right on track. Like, this looks good.
Thanks. I think it helps to have. My dad doesn't agree, but I call it a failed like athlete career behind me, where I clearly see what I did wrong for 15 years, and then now I can just try to make those wrongs right by doing the right thing here.
Yeah, I mean, there's 100 different ways. Like you said, there's 100 different ways to get to 225, and I'm sure if you talk to 10 different coaches, they would tell you write you 10 different training plans. So like, it's just figuring out what works best with you, and then buying in and totally believing it.
Exactly. Jacob, I've really appreciated this conversation. It's been really interesting to hear. Last thing before we say bye, I'm curious about you. You've been mentioning this marathon that you're doing in December. What marathon are you doing? Is that the marathon project that you're doing?
I'm not going to do the marathon project. I'll be at the CIM, California International Marathon, which is in Sacramento. It's also going to be the U.S. Championships this year, so I think the field is going to be really good. I actually ran 2:11 there in 2022. I've run 2:11 twice, and I was second there last time. And so it's a course I'm familiar with. The timing works really well, just because this summer I was getting married and going on my honeymoon and all that stuff, and then I got back at the very beginning of August, and I'm like, all right, perfect. I got 18 weeks to get my butt in shape and build up towards this race. And it's kind of like, it's similar to a Boston, where it's net downhill and it's point to point, but it's rolling kind of whole way. It's kind of like one step up, two steps down is what I call it. So it's not like a flat, fast course, but I think it's a course like Boston. If you race it well, you can run a quick time on it. So yeah, that's what I'm getting ready for. I'm gonna race. Actually, I'm running a 10K on Saturday in New York, and then I will pace the Chicago Marathon. I'm pacing the women's 220 group. So I'll run 5:20 pace for 20 plus miles with them, which will be like great for me because it's almost like one of those progression long runs, right, or steady state like long runs where I can use it as a big training stimulus. And then I'm looking for a half marathon. I was trying to get into Valencia. I haven't gotten in yet. So yeah, I'm searching for a fast half marathon, either into October, beginning of November. That'll hopefully set me up for CIM, which is on December 7th.
And what's your goal there? I'm sorry, I should have known that was the U.S. Championships, but what is your goal there in December?
Definitely I've been trying to break this 210 barrier for a long time, so I think that's goal number one. And I feel like a lot of the training I've been doing has been lining up with that 209, 208 range. I just haven't put it together. I was my last marathon was Rotterdam in April, and through like 22 miles, I was on 209 pace, and I ran 214. I ran 6-minute pace basically for the last 5K, blew up horribly. So yeah, just looking to kind of get a little revenge off of that one. Yeah, so that'll be the goal. And then honestly, with any U.S. championship, this kind of goes back to the competitive side of things we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast. But all my best races come when I'm like competing versus just like trying to click off splits. Like I've never been a good, let's go time trial. Like I've always, all my best times just come when I like throw that out the window and I'm focused on competing and executing a plan. So with it being a U.S. championship, I think it gives me even more incentive to just go in there and race. And I think it'll take a sub 210 to win, but if it's some weird day and it takes 213 to win, I'll be just as happy with that if I come away with a win. So yeah, that's what I'll be shooting for there.
Cool. I really appreciate our conversation, and I feel like I'm repeating myself on the pod having guests here because I think it's really nice that like I said, I've been following you for a while, and then you are the same person here when we're chatting as you are like the way you seem on social media. And that's not always the case, but it seems to always be the case with the runners that are on here. And I think that goes back to what you were saying earlier about the community and marathoners. It's a nice bunch of people, so appreciate that and appreciate your time, and good luck with the 10K on Saturday, with pacing in Chicago, and obviously with U.S. Championships in December.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
And
I appreciate
the
it.
podcast. Very excited about that one. People should
check us out.
Go follow it.
Out and Back. It'll be on Spotify. Hopefully, I guess about a week a week from now or right after this one comes out. So come check it
Exactly.
out.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you.
A great conversation with a great guy. Really, really cool to hear how he's training, how he's approaching coaching, and also about his journey. And I really respect that he kind of made a decision to walk away from something very safe and secure to something that was maybe not as certain, a bit more unpredictable, but just trying to make sure his career was as good as possible. So really appreciate Jacob and him coming on. And also we were in this episode saying that the episodes for his podcast with Rory Linkletter was coming out a couple of days after, but actually they launched it yesterday or the day before. So go check it out and back. And it's a great podcast. I started listening to it, and a really high production level, great content, good questions, and great conversations between the two of them, and also with their coach. So, or with Rory's coach. Yeah. Go check it out. And if you haven't already, follow this podcast, give it a review. We really, really appreciate that. And again, thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you in the next one. You listen to the Marathon Podcast, brought to you by Wall Studio.